What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to talk about some news about this episode and for The Walking Dead, and we're also going to have an episode breakdown. In this episode, we're going to do some speculation, but we're probably going to split the speculation into a second episode. That seems to work better. For this episode, what's your 3-word teaser? Do you have one?
A 3-word teaser?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
So, Lydia, what did you think of the episode?
I'm going to be that person. Anticlimactic.
Really? That's 3 syllables.
Yeah. I only had 1 word for it.
Okay.
Sorry.
And that's what it is. Tune in. Keep watching to see why. What is up, guys? This is Dylan.
And I'm Lydia.
And thanks for tuning in, whatever you're watching on, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook, or wherever you found this video out there on the interwebs. Also in podcast format, so thanks for listening. And I just want to say hello to all our new listeners. If you're giving us a shot for the first time, I appreciate that. We're growing. We're a rather new show, so just cut us a little slack. We'd appreciate it, and just watch us grow. It'll be fun. You'll get to laugh at us when we do stupid stuff, and we get better along the way. So also don't forget to check out that website. That's www.broken.picturesnew.com. And you can check us out on social media on Facebook. That is Broken Pictures Social. And then Instagram and Twitter, we're Broken_social. And if you're feeling generous, you can hit us up on Patreon at Broken Pictures. But most importantly, the most helpful thing you can do is to like, share, and potentially subscribe if you like it. Leave a comment, rate, and review. Just tell us what you think about it. We love to interact and engage with the audience. So let us know what you think. And so some special notes. As you can see, Quin is not here today. He is out visiting some family for Thanksgiving. So we wish him well. Hope you eat some good stuff for me, Quin.
You could be eating some good stuff too.
Oh,
I'm cooking Thanksgiving dinner on Thursday. We're just not traveling this year.
I don't mean to discredit your good stuff. I'm just saying.
Thank you. It's going to be like Monica.
Extra good
I'm going to be competing against last year's Lydia for a better Thanksgiving dinner.
And that works out for me. So, also happy Thanksgiving. This is, if you're in America, this is Thanksgiving for us this week anyway.
Well, today's not.
Yeah, we film on Tuesdays. So if you're listening on Thursday or whatever, happy Thanksgiving week, I guess. So anyway, also, spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
If you've gotten this far into the episode, you know that this is about The Walking Dead, episode 7 of season 9. And we're going to get into some spoiler territory, so be warned. All right, so news for the week. The Walking Dead really don't have a whole lot except that Michael Cutlitz, who played Abraham, came back and directed this episode. And I thought for a first time out, he did pretty good. There was a lot of filler and things that needed to be explained. And as far as like I enjoyed the information, that the learning about what happened and that type of thing.
I would agree with that.
But yeah, we'll rate the episode here in a second. But he's also talking to Fear the Walking Dead about potentially directing an episode for them. So he's been around for quite a while, and he's been trying to get in the director's chair for a while from what he said. And also next season, Andrew Lincoln is coming to direct an episode. He shadowed an episode this season. And pretty much stayed on set for the entire season, even though he was on for like 5 episodes. So maybe we're getting a sneak Andrew Lincoln Rick cameo later on in the season. Who knows? At this point, I don't even know if we need it. It just seems like we're such a world removed from Rick Grimes.
Yeah. I think that because we all know that he's still out there somewhere and that we're gonna get some information about his story and where it's going. I think that we're all at a happy place with it right now, and I think that we can all respect that he wanted more time with his family and to be back in London, or I don't know if he lives in London, but Europe. So I think that we can all really respect that and be patient while we wait on him.
Agreed. Excuse me, my drink almost went down the wrong tube there for a second. But so we're gonna rate the episode. I did a little poll on Twitter. And the options were great, just okay, or horrible, or didn't watch. So most people thought it was great. 83%, 17% said it was just okay. And nobody said they didn't watch or horrible. But hey, you know, if you don't vote, you don't get a voice. So hey, that's how it works. So I'm going to say out of a 1 to 10 scale, for me, the episode was...
That's not a number.
6.97. Like it wasn't a horrible episode, but I enjoyed, just because of the momentum, I think it was a good episode. Finding out some good stuff, what's going on with our new group and the old group, and Carol and Daryl and people that we just wanted to catch up with.
Yeah, I would almost give it a 8 or an 8.5. Like, I thought the
Really?
content of it was really good. I'm not a big fan right now of the building, just because with a 6-year time gap, you've had all this time to build up all of this in the world, but you haven't really actually done any revealing to us. And I'm kind of to the point where, okay, just let me know some actual information. You know, I liked that they revealed some things about Maggie and the fact that Michonne didn't know that and things like that. But so I thought the content was good. And it was done well. The content was done well, I guess, is what I should be saying. But I was wanting more.
Yeah. The execution was good. Michael Cutlass did good.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
it was told well.
Yeah. But like you said, some of the information about Maggie, it's like AMC is really bad about leaking information, just telling you what's going on and what's going to happen. So everybody kind of already knew that, and it wasn't like something we were learning for the first time.
Yeah, it wasn't like a mic drop or anything like that.
Yeah. It was just like,
we all pretty much speculated that she was with Georgie anyway. And so it didn't feel like a big reveal. And we didn't really have any other information brought to us other than the fact that Michonne didn't know that Maggie was gone. So it felt like we didn't really learn anything. I'm sorry, I thought I turned that on silent. My bad.
Yeah, she's getting messages right now. We're in the middle of taping.
I'm sorry.
If you're old like me, it's taping instead of recording or whatever people do nowadays. So, all right. So this episode, Quin's not here with his movie voice. You keep hitting that?
Yeah, it's in my way.
Yeah, I didn't move one of the mounts because they're a pain to put on and off. But anyways, so this episode, the title, I'm going to do my best to try to do Quin's movie voice justice. So, Stradivarius. I'm already like losing going into it. I've psyched myself out.
I feel like that's a hard word to say with that tone.
Stradivarius. The description. Thanks for the support, babe.
It's my pleasure.
So it's the official description. Carol seeks out an old friend living alone in the wilderness, teeming with walkers. Survivors must make the perilous trek to a new home. That's it. And so last we left The Walking Dead. Last week, against the rules, Judith brings a new group to Alexandria where her mother, Michonne, is now chief of security. After swaying a newly formed council to not let them stay, Michonne becomes convinced by the group's honesty and Judith's reasoning to give them a second chance. She decides to take them to Hilltop after the fact. And Carol takes Henry to learn blacksmithing from the Hilltop, but stops to visit an old friend along the way, Daryl. And also Eugene and Rosita have a run-in with the Whisperers while trying to boost the radio signal against Michonne's wishes. So,
well, they didn't actually ask her, so they knew that it would have been against her wishes, but they went without telling her, and so that's why I think Michonne was like the most disturbed to see it, because she's like, what are they even doing out here?
Yeah, and then she's gonna find out about Aaron as well. Like we can get in that a little bit more later, but even Sadiq, she was like, how did you know?
Yeah.
So,
I am really glad that they explained that Sadiq knew without Michonne knowing, because in the episode 2 episodes ago where she decides to take them to the hilltop and Sadiq is like, you're gonna take them to hilltop. I was like, man, that seems like kind of a shoddy way to be talking to your head of security about it. But then he knew information, so he was like, dang, I'm gonna have to tell her that I knew. I just screwed myself over. And so I really appreciated that they fleshed that out a little bit more.
Yeah. I did want to get into this later, but I'm feeling it. Man, Michonne, to have begun a council, it's almost like in name only, you know what I mean? Because she is still kind of ruling things begrudgingly, like with a grudge, you know what I mean? Like almost with like an iron hand, where everybody is like tiptoeing around Michonne, like Michonne wouldn't like that, Michonne would this and that, you know. Everything is a security breach, you know what I mean? It's like they want to go outside the walls. Michonne won't like that. That's a security breach.
Well, duh.
I mean, even like Aaron reaching out to Jesus, who's his friend, that's a security breach. Michonne wouldn't like that. It's like as much as she's clamped down and thinks she's got a hold on everybody, everybody's still doing their own thing, just sneaking around.
We have no clue what happened.
Yeah.
We have no clue what's led her to this point.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's fair, but I'm just saying in general. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't necessarily agree.
Okay. Well, we'll debate that in a beat. All right. So the episode breakdown. We start out. Rosita is lost in the woods. She's bleeding. Looks like she's been hit by something or ran into something or whatever. She's out of water, and she's being stalked by the new talking walkers. Mm-hmm. And if you're just a show watcher, with all the information out there and what AMC is putting out as far as teasers and the Talking Dead and all this stuff, it's hard for me to know unless, I mean, for one, you probably wouldn't be listening to this show if you're so hardcore against spoilers and you don't know who the Whisperers are. I don't know how you made it this far with not knowing who they are, but we're just going to assume that everybody knows that these are not normal walkers, that they're Whisperers, you know?
Yeah, and it's not like they've evolved or changed or anything like that. The Whisperers are a group of people who wear walker skin on them and act like walkers and go around, and they whisper as communication when they're dressed in their walker gear. To just give you a synopsis of what the Whisperers are.
Yeah, and they're very tribal, animalistic, very anti-government, or not just government, but anti-community. They're savages, basically.
Yet in a community.
Yeah, their own. It's funny.
Something about that seems a little...
They're a tribe.
Ironic.
Maybe they're against like big government.
Maybe they're against, I don't know. I don't know enough about the comic or anything.
I don't know either. Yeah, Quin's not here to set us straight on stuff, so we're just going to be wildly speculating about things, and then he can come in next week and fix it.
And berate us for what we've done.
Yep. So,
I really love this scene with Rosita lost in the woods. Listening to The Talking Dead, Michael Cutlass was talking about his inspiration for directing that scene, and it was very Blair Witch Project, which I haven't seen, so
me neither.
I feel kind of bad, so now I feel obligated to go and watch it. But I did really like the intensity of it, and even Dylan was saying when we went to rewatch the episode, I only made it that far into the scene when we rewatched it because I fell asleep, but Not because it was boring, because I was tired. But Dylan was like, man, I didn't really like that where Rosita like seems really shaken, and that doesn't seem like Rosita. But I was talking about how like I can't imagine coming into the apocalypse like that, and maybe it's a callback to how she was when she first got into the apocalypse.
I was just gonna say, in my defense, I always play devil's advocate in my head. If I make a decision about something, I always pitch the other side of it just to kind of see where I really fall and try to be a balanced person or whatever. So that's what I was doing with the Rosita thing, and I was just like, because if my first impression was like, man, that was just really cool. It's like it was like very horror esque, and I love that they're leaning into that a lot more. But then like when I watched it again, I was like, they might be trying too hard,
I liked it.
Yeah. I mean,
And to be able to portray and give me like a creepy horror feeling in the middle of the day, like she's not even in that thick of woods. Like her surroundings and things like weren't that creepy. It was just the way it was shot, the way it was done, still portrayed that horror. I think that takes a lot of talent. So kudos, Michael Cutlets. Like I know what I'm talking about to give you props, but
it was a very short scene. I mean, it was less than a minute long, and it had a very big effect.
Yeah, absolutely.
To set the tone for the show.
I loved how the episode that Michael Cutlets directed was a Rosita episode, and we opened with Rosita. I loved that.
Even though we didn't see Eugene at all. He was alluded to. He was lost in the woods.
He's in the barn.
I guess that, if you go back to like the essence of Eugene, he was there. He was lost.
Yeah.
And, through Abraham's eyes, anyways. So all right, then we go to Daryl, and he's leading Henry and Carol to his camp, and he's got traps set all around. And Carol asks him. We get the shot of this boat, and it was kind of a teaser last week. We get the shot of this boat that's got a tent on it. It looks like it's built for like long trips, or not long trips, but as far as like going down the river for a day or two and coming back, where he can sleep and do what he needs to do. Not just like a little canoe where he can go out and come right back or whatever. But he's built quite a little boat there, and Carol asked him if he's fixed it since last time, so she knows what's going on with him. And even he just kind of ignores her and is about his business, going through his routine.
Well, she doesn't ask. She says, "You haven't fixed the boat yet." Like she says, like, respond. Why didn't? Well, she's accusing him. Like, why aren't you doing this? What are you spending all your time doing?
I didn't get that vibe, but
I did.
I thought it was a question. Just kind of like, why haven't you done that? And so then she asks him, when was the last time you ate? And he says, well, dog ate yesterday. And she's like, well, I wasn't talking about the dog. And she's like, I would have brought you some cookies had I known. And then he tosses a Walker hand. And my first impression last week was that the dog was eating Walkers, and because he was talking about eating, and we see the Walker hand or whatever. But he picks up. You can see it off screen, the smoke from the fire. He tosses the Walker hand in the fire. And so just a little behind the scene tidbit. Norman Reedus and Angela Kang, I wrote Kane, Kang, have been pushing for Daryl to get a dog for a long, long time. She said actually since she came on in season 2, she was on the Daryl gets a dog boat. So for a long, long time.
Not on Norman's boat though, because she would sink.
Yeah, because he hasn't fixed it. And so then we jump back over to Michonne and Sadiq. How about that little ponytail he's got going on there?
Awkward. Hated it. Carol, go give Sadiq a haircut.
Just enough. And so let's see. They're leading the new group down the road with DJ, the Reformed Savior, who seems to be what I can't think of the word. He's meshed with Alexandria pretty well, where he seems to be a very well respected part of the community, very trusted. Because he's got his weapon and everything. He's just like one of them. So Sadiq tells Michonne that she's going out of her way, considering that she actually likes the new group. She's kind of like, she doesn't want to trust them, but they're growing on her. And this whole episode was about that journey with Michonne and the audience getting to know Magna's group and learning that they're not really a threat and they're good people and all that kind of thing. What?
I don't necessarily agree. Like, it's been one night, and nothing they have done has been like remarkably, or like remarkable in the way of making us trust them. You know, like, I don't think.
Well, except that everything they've said is true. Their story checked out completely.
I don't know.
Okay. We also see that Michonne and Sadiq kind of have a little bit of chemistry. What'd you think about that?
Disgusting.
Yeah, because, he kind of represents, even though it wasn't really his fault, he kind of represents why Carl isn't there, you know? Mm-hmm. So, yep. Let us know what you think about that. Are you shipping Michonne and Sadiq, or are you still full on Rashon?
Yeah.
So, also, little comics note, Magna's group ends up staying at Alexandria. They don't go to the hilltop, which is probably one reason why they had Sadiq kind of draw attention to why they were going to hilltop and, why this, and kind of explained it a little bit.
I feel like maybe they're only taking them to Hilltop to move the story there, have a reason for Michonne to go to Hilltop and things. And so I hope that they don't end up like screwing themselves with that and then like, oh, just kidding, but we're really going to have them stay at Alexandria, but we needed to move the story to Hilltop, I hope that they don't do that.
Yeah, I think I said last week, I felt the same way. It felt a little forced.
Yeah, and I disagreed with you, but I could kind of see how it ends up happening if they don't do it right.
Yeah. That's the point you made. I think it makes sense, but I think it's a weak argument. Is that she's respecting the council's wishes to not let them stay, even though she swayed them. When she's Michonne, she basically controls everything anyway. She could have you. She won't because she's against unilaterally, but she's right on the edge of just making unilateral decisions. It's like she's considering, she's given other people a chance to speak, but she's not. But then she's still kind of like roughshodding over their choices and convincing everybody to do what she wants to do.
I could see that.
So then Magna wants her weapons back, and she's kind of arguing within her group why she, that she wants her weapons back, and they're trying to convince her to trust and all that kind of stuff. But it's really cool how they communicate using American Sign Language to kind of keep everybody else from knowing what they're talking about.
I didn't really catch that or agree with that, because sometimes they were just talking and no one was translating for Connie, and it was almost like she was only reading their lips, which to a certain extent you can get the gist of what they're saying, but they weren't always looking at her, and so I actually didn't really care for that part that much.
Oh, really? It seemed to me that it was just kind of alluding to that the entire group kind of knew sign language, and they made that part of their communication.
When they're in the truck bed, but whenever they're out in the field, and that's when they're debating and talking about things and talking about Bernie and their rig and all of those things.
And Connie's not within sight.
Well, she was close. She was really close to them, and it was Yumiko talking, but at points she was turned away from Connie and wasn't talking to Connie, but it was expected, but she was talking to Connie. I don't know. To me, it seemed conflicted and not greatly done. I didn't hate it, but I just didn't think that it was super great.
Yeah, they kind of made some assumptions there.
Yeah, you have to go out of your way to sign everything. Otherwise, like, the message can get misconstrued, and I feel like that wasn't something that you would want to miscommunicate.
Yeah, and really that's what I forget her name. Kelly is supposed to be there for, to kind of bridge the gap, but she doesn't seem to always be, or at least we don't see her on screen bridging that gap.
Not always.
Yeah. So so Yumiko apologizes to Michonne because Michonne's kind of paying attention. She apologizes for Magna, and they talk about how she hated Bernie and his paisley shirt, but came around on him and became, they became like family, is what Michonne says. And so Michonne's kind of, I think she's coming around on him the same way, they used Bernie as like a metaphor for Michonne coming around on the new group. And so Michonne also, she asks her if the hilltop is safe. Michonne says it is, but she hasn't been there in a while. So that's like the first reveal we get, that Michonne just hasn't been to hilltop since whatever. And then we go to Hilltop. We get a shot of their growth, and they're just kicking butt and taking names. I mean, they've got gardens just way out the front gate. Got a road.
Those are
going on.
fields.
Yeah, fields. Yeah. You're right. That's way beyond a garden.
Enid is wanting a garden.
Yeah, yeah. Enid's wanting some medicinal herbs. So we see some pottery going on, some training. They got like a makeshift washing machine. Like they got it going on. And so Tara seems to be running everything, and she comes upstairs. During this whole time, they're playing the Jesus and Mary Chain's April Skies, and so some of the lyrics say like the world comes tumbling down, and in the midst of, like, they've done this before, where in the midst of one thing visually, audibly they're doing something that's in conflict with what you're seeing. It's like everything is working out. They're growing, all this growth, and but then the music says the world comes tumbling down, and so it's definitely foreshadowing that something bad is coming. And so then we get Tara coming up to find Jesus. He's actually listening to it on a record. And also, some of the lyrics also said, one thing I couldn't do is sacrifice myself to you. So that kind of alludes to Jesus is really not wanting to be there, not wanting to be the leader, kind of checking out a little bit. And she kind of calls him on it. And he's like, why are you up here just listening to music? We got stuff to do. We got a whole list of people that need to talk to you. And that also brings up a question that you had about, like, when we first met Georgie, the only thing she wanted was records. And so now, like, he says that he appreciates the gift. So apparently Georgie's given them records. So at some point their relationship has shifted and it's changed a little bit, and they've got a new agreement. Or maybe that was in thanks for loaning Maggie out or something. I don't know.
Well, I mean, she's not theirs to loan. I mean, she can do whatever she wants, and
right,
that's.
But yeah.
I mean, it's not a loan. Like, Tara makes that very. I can't think of the word I was looking for. Tara expresses just like, Maggie's not coming back. Like, you're the leader. It's been long enough. You should know. She's not planning on coming back. You're supposed to be running things now. I kept thinking about it a little bit more. I was like, man, maybe she's got a lot of records now, and that one's really played out. Or maybe that one's one that she just really thought Jesus would enjoy. I don't know. I mean, it's not like she gave him her whole stack of records or something like that. I mean, it just seems like it's just probably a few.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Whatever the case, it was a gift, and he made a point of saying that he appreciated that it was a gift. So let's see, what do we got here? Jesus has a letter for Maggie that the twins had delivered that morning. So they're very much still in communication with Georgie.
I didn't
and everything.
really like that it kind of like, why didn't Maggie deliver it? Why isn't she visiting? Like, why are the twins delivering things on her behalf?
Well, because I guess that's what the twins do. And even Sadiq said later on in the episode that Maggie was with Georgie somewhere far away, helping a community. And he didn't really know where she was or what she was doing. So maybe that's why.
The twins are just the mail service right now?
Yeah, they're the
USPS.
Gophers. TWIN. Anyways, that was dumb.
Not great.
Yeah. So, so Tara's got a list of things. She gave the kazoo to the kid, and he's, kind of fussing at her about that. And she, you find a kazoo, you give it to a kid. And one missable detail is that Alden. Detail?
Sounded like you said detail.
One missable detail, excuse me, is that Alden is alive and well and wants to get a crew to go look for scrap metal. Mm-hmm. And so that's a clue of what he's up to right now. But we know from some of the images that they've released for next week that he is actually working with the blacksmith, and he's learned blacksmithing as well, and he's an apprentice or whatever.
He's with the smithy.
Yep, he's with the smithy. So Alden has integrated. That was the word I was looking for earlier. He's integrated well as just as well, and so he might be the only savior at Hilltop that we've seen that's integrated. Even though I think there was a couple before the jump that was with him or whatever.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I haven't kept a tally really.
Yeah, it's also very interesting to see that, and I saw this on Thomas Paine, who plays Jesus's Twitter. One thing he shared was it was a meme, and this kid was like, "People are dying left and right, and then you have a 6-year time jump, and nobody's died." Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Maybe they were just B characters that we don't really care about.
Yeah, nobody's been risking it.
Well, I mean, I was just about to say that. We really haven't. I mean, it's very possible. Actually, we don't know that no one has died.
Just nobody we care about.
Yeah, yet. There are no specific characters that we know about that have died. People very well could have died in the event that they keep alluding to or whatever. People could have died then, and they're B characters.
Yeah, there was definitely some emotional damage.
For sure.
Yeah. So there's some characters.
Don't know.
The whole. We saw what was left of the saviors, but as far as we can tell, the entire sanctuary went bust.
Nobody has died, but no one has talked about Oceanside. Maybe all of Oceanside died. We have no clue.
Yeah, we'll speculate on that a little bit further in the second episode, but. Yeah, that's a big question. We're 2 episodes into the time jump and 0 mention of Oceanside. And even though we've already put a ribbon on the remnant saviors. Okay, so where we at? We jump. Jesus has been reelected. He believes it's temporary. He won't even move into Maggie's office. And Tara's just kind of trying to hit him with a dose of reality. And it's like, look, this is what it is. We got to deal with what it is, not with what we wish it to be. And so then we go to Daryl killing a snake. He's checking his traps, gets some little rabbit for dinner, clears out some walkers. And Carol giving a little bit more exposition on Daryl. He's been out longer than he said he would, whatever that means, however long that is, we don't know. Excuse me.
Maybe he had a 5-year commitment or something.
Yeah, and then just over 6 years, and she's like, hey, it's time.
Time's a ticking.
That's why it was a 6-year time jump, just some odd year. It's all based on Daryl's timeline. They have a little small talk about just what's going on, and then Carol basically wants Daryl to go to the hilltop to keep an eye on Henry. And he's like, is that really what you want me keeping an eye on your kid? And it seems like he is almost offended at first. It's like, is that why you came out here? Because you want a chaperone for your kid. And so then we go back to Michonne and company. They arrive at Magna's group's rig. And I can't... The way it was shot, I couldn't really tell like what they meant by rig. Like, did it have wheels or like what? I mean, apparently they've been on the move.
No, they drag it with them.
Well, I mean, because it looked just like a storage container turned over on its side, and there was like it looked like potentially maybe on top there was like some umbrellas or something. But I honestly didn't see any wheels. I didn't see any rigging for horses or anything. I don't know how they got around. They obviously didn't push it. I don't know. They came up on these walkers and it messed them up. But then they said, hey, this is way more destroyed than what we left it. And so that I think could potentially that the second herd that came through might have been the Whisperers scavenging.
Oh, is that what you're speculating?
Yeah. That's what I'm speculating.
Which is meant for the next episode.
Yeah, we're going to get into a little bit. So another one missable detail is that immediately Magna goes digging through Bernie's things. And it seems like she's looking for that paisley shirt that she hated so much. And very much like family, it's just kind of like, no, like I can mess with my brother, but you better not mess with my brother type thing. And so she's kind of like got like this little love-hate thing going on with Bernie. And some people are speculating that her and Bernie kind of became a thing or whatever, that they became a thing. But I don't think so. I think there's a little bit somebody else she's more interested in. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But anyway, they're a lot like family. And I think emotionally, she's kind of like Daryl. Like when we first found Daryl, like she's wanting to be part of the bigger group, but she's still standoffish, And I think even though she's a lot like Rick, she's a lot like Daryl as well. And that kind of checks out for me, like as far as like headcanon. It makes sense because Yumiko really steps up in this episode, and it's almost like she's the leader, and Magna is just kind of like the enforcer, like the right hand, and she takes over when Yumiko isn't there.
It almost kind of makes me actually believe that when Magna says, what makes you think we have a leader, that it was not like they're not run, they don't have a Rick. They have Daryl's and Michonne's and Aaron's and Jesus's, but they don't have a Rick.
Yeah, I could see that. And it's almost, yeah. But at the same time, I could see the potential of her not wanting to reveal that it was Yumiko because she was
incapacitated.
Yeah, she was in a position. So let's see. Luke is looking for salvaged instruments, and we get a little backstory from Sadiq about the recorder that his aunt gave him, and then his auntie, and then
just aunt.
Then a weekend, his mom decides that he likes painting better. It's pretty funny.
Which I thought was really cool that the actor that portrays or plays Sadiq actually does painting in his free time. Yeah.
So then Michonne reveals that she's not going the entire way, that this is it. And so Magnus is like, oh, okay, well, shoot, give our weapons back. If you're basically the alpha dog is leaving, we need to be able to fight on our own. And Michonne says, well, that's not happening. If you want the weapons, then you don't get us. It's makes it very clear. And then they kind of go back and forth on it. Can't decide. And Yumiko steps up and was like, no. This is what we're doing. They wouldn't put us back together just to put us apart, unless they were the Terminus people. Get you healthy and fat. But So they obviously haven't run into Terminus. Blah, 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 blah. Where am I?
Jesus gets jumped outside of Hilltop, but it's only Aaron, and they've been meeting secretly. I almost made a joke. So Jesus can train him, and they can keep communication open between the communities. And you put, right.
Yeah, that's why they're meeting.
Just two frogs on a log.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems awful convenient that the only two
Which is
gay
so far
characters-
the only ship I'm about. Like, I'm okay with it. 100% okay. Because they're just so sweet. I love them both, and I want them to both be happy. Sadiq, I don't care for you. I don't care about your happiness.
Sorry, bud.
Or Gabriel. You and Rosita are dumb.
Yeah, take that Milky Eye and look elsewhere.
Ugh.
So also, Aaron reveals in their little communication, they kind of have a little brotherly. I would say brotherly, except that they're gay and they could potentially be a relationship. And it was like the whole time they were fighting, it was just like, are they going to stop and kiss?
Yeah, I'm glad that you didn't do that, Michael Cutlass. I really appreciate.
Yeah, that would have been a little
pushing
too
to
on the
write
nose.
that in or something. Yeah.
So they leave it very very vague where it could or couldn't be, you know. So as they're talking, Aaron reveals that Michonne doesn't know about Maggie and that she basically tanked the council vote so that they would not participate in the fair with the kingdom in Hilltop. And like Jesus said, others. It's not just. I don't know if you can hear. There's a car like past.
Oh,
minute,
they definitely heard. Is that what a car sounds like?
I was trying to ignore it. Yep, that's exactly what a car sounds like. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do sound effects, man. So anyway, basically she tanked it, and Jesus said, like, I was trying to listen to the verbiage of like how he was describing it, because as far as we know right now, there's only, as far as who they've identified, it's Hilltop, Kingdom, and Alexandria, and that's it, except for Georgie out somewhere else or whatever. But he did say that it's not just important for Alexandria, it's also important for the others. That was the only indication that it could potentially be more than just them three communities, those three communities. But man, they're playing really close to the chest on this. It's hard to tell if there's more or if there's not. So yeah, it's just also it's a sign of the times that they're just out there discussing politics instead of like where they're going to get their next meal or you know, whatever. And so yeah, and like we were talking about before, Michonne, even though there's a council, still seems to very much be running the joint. Like she's running things, you know. Like I mean, if there's something she doesn't like, she's going to grandstand and make. And I think he mentioned, because I think he was talking about how so she tanked the council vote. So anything that happens that she doesn't like, she's going to bring up what happened, the event or whatever. You all remember, you know, and this is why, you know, and it's almost like just like a stereotypical like general, you know, it's always like worried about the enemy and blah 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 blah, you know. And that's always like when you're watching a movie, usually that guy's the bad guy, but with it being Michonne, it's just like. I
don't know though. Like it's also, I feel like smart to be reminded. Like that's why you have history books. Like she's an active history book right now. Mm-hmm. I don't know that degree. I feel that it's her grandstanding. I can't agree with that yet.
Yeah, it's very 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 fear based. Even though
it's the apocalypse.
Well, yeah, obviously, but they're still trying to grow and move forward, and everybody around them, so much so that she would not even be okay with Jesus and Aaron meeting or talking without her approval. You know, like she's got a tight. She's almost running it with an iron fist. I mean, like she's gonna be upset, but she's not gonna. I think the difference is that she would be upset if she found out, but she's not going to be like punishing them. You know?
But we don't know that it's because they're meeting and speaking. It very well could be that she's not okay with them meeting so far out and when it's so close to dark.
I don't know.
I mean, he does make a point to mention like, hey, it's almost dark. We need to get Rosita up and out of here because it's almost dark. And they've mentioned how often they're fearful of that. And so I feel like we don't have enough evidence to just say that it's because she's ruling things with an iron fist.
I don't know. I think her fear is bringing her has brought her to a place that she never wanted to be. So yeah, you mentioned Rosita. They see the flare over the treetops, and they find Rosita only. She's passed out, and we see the flare gun because before we didn't see her shoot it off or whatever before she passed out, but it was cutting in and out, I guess.
And she was also like propped up on a tree this time, and so I think we're to believe that she woke up, came back to, moved, got the gun, shot the flare, and passed back out.
Yeah, I could see that. So yeah, she says that she left Eugene in a barn somewhere, and I
liked this part. Well, I didn't like this part because she says I left him in the barn, and they say what barn? Like, well, I don't know, guys. It could have been this barn, this barn, this barn, this barn, this barn, all these barns. Like,
yeah,
you trying to tell me you don't know what barn she talking about?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, Aaron and Jesus were both recruiters and scavengers, and so they probably know the area very well.
Yeah.
So I mean, there are probably lots of barns out there. I mean, you're talking about the countryside, you know. I mean, just think about like how many barns are from here to Bentonville or Fayetteville.
Okay, we're also in Arkansas.
True, but I mean, they're still out in the country.
Whatever. I just thought that was a little unnecessary. Like, I just didn't think it was necessary.
I thought it was just like it comes with the territory.
Apparently, it doesn't. They don't know what territory.
So the walkers are out and about. They see some walkers, so they decide to just let Eugene be okay for the night. And she's not really okay with it, but she's still really out of it, so she can't say anything about it. And they're going to get her back before dark. And because at this point, they don't know that there's anything different about the walkers. They just think, oh, well, he'll be fine. And so then we go back to Daryl. And his dog brings him a walker foot as he prepares some snake and rabbit stew. And Henry puts two and two together and realizes that Carol is basically just wanting Daryl to chaperone him. Well, on the surface. And he expresses his displeasure with that. And so then Daryl's like, hey, we got about 30 minutes till dinner time. And Carol says, just enough time to give him a haircut. So apparently, Daryl just wanted a little off the top, or Carol's just not good at cutting hair because he could not tell, you know, except for like right after she cut, looked like, I mean, there was like a strand that was like, you know, 6 inches long. She cut it down to 3 inches or whatever, just above his eyebrow. But then for the rest of the episode, you can tell that it was cut. You know, and it was like, okay, now I've got it out of his face. And I was really excited because I was like, oh, we're actually going to see Daryl like short hair again. We can actually see his face and his expressions, you know. I was kind of excited, but no. He's behind his cloud of darkness. So then Daryl reveals that when he first went out, he was going to look for Rick's body, and he never found one. It just got easier to stay out there, so he did. And that's, I mean, we could gloss over that, but that's actually really sad, you know, that he just, you know, he went out looking for his brother, and he's been combing through burnt bodies for years looking for Rick and then not found him. And he's not giving up, you know, because, I mean, how many hundreds, maybe even thousands of walkers was that was caught in the bridge fire, the explosion, you know, and they're all downriver. And that's why he's got the boat, and he's going downriver and, you know, checking all these things out. And he's been doing it for years. He's been out there for years, you know, and he still hasn't found anything. Still hasn't found anything that would make him believe that it was Rick, you know. Mm-hmm. So apparently they're not completely unidentifiable, you know. He would be able to tell which one was Rick, I guess. I mean, he's Daryl. He's a tracker and, you know, identifier extraordinaire, right?
Must be.
And so Daryl plays with his hair a little bit and tells him he needs to let it go, and of course he does because, you know.
You mean Carol plays with his hair a little bit?
Yeah, Carol plays with Daryl's hair. And yeah, why wouldn't he let it go after he's been out there by his lonesome and Carol pays him a visit and plays with his hair a little bit?
Well, I'm sure she's been doing this repeatedly.
Yeah, that's true.
She's probably been working on him to come back for 6 years.
Yeah. And even like at that point, this was the only time during the episode that Henry kind of turns around and he's like, it's almost like he's like, wait a minute.
Should I tell Dad about this?
Yeah, is this
Somebody need to tell the king.
Yeah. And they really could have played that romantically, but they didn't really. It was just kind of like they're just close friends. They could, but maybe not. Or yeah, I don't know. They left that open. I
think it's just left to believe that. Like, I mean, they care about each other. They've been with each other since the beginning almost, and so, I mean, I think it's just left for us to deduce that they just really care for each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's at this point it's not an option, but if Ezekiel wasn't there, we might get
If she starts going to the hilltop a lot, I guess we'll know.
Yeah. Well, she's going to check on Henry, of course.
Oh yeah, her son.
So, so over dinner, Henry asks to see Daryl's scar. At this point, we you know, apparently
he has to see his scar, or he asks where his scar is from.
He asks if he could see it. He said, "Oh, well, no." He asks about it, so we haven't seen it. And at this point, we have no reason to believe that Henry would know about it either, outside of mention, because they haven't changed their clothes or it's not visible. So, yeah. So then Daryl quickly changes the subject and goes looking for dog. And a missable detail is that Daryl, you know, I think we talked about it. Daryl isn't actually feeding the dog walkers like I previously thought, because I thought it was kind of alluded to with the teaser last week. But he's actually taking better care of the dog than himself. You know, with Carol asked him, you know, when was the last time you eat? And he said the dog had eaten yesterday. And
when's the last time you eat?
You eat? My country's coming out. So, yeah, if you don't know, we live in Arkansas.
We've only said that about 12 times.
Yeah. So, yeah, over the course, well, maybe they're a first-time listener and they don't know.
We literally, I just said it. I said we are in Arkansas.
Oh, whoops. My bad. So anyway, yeah.
And Daryl hasn't even named the dog. Well, yeah. I mean, he has named him. He named him Dog.
Yeah, and that's such a perfect representation of Daryl. That's like, he in action, he's gonna take care of you and do the best, but verbally he's not there. Like he's not gonna tell you that he thinks you're the greatest, or, you know, hey, pat you on the back necessarily. But whenever you need something, Daryl's gonna be the one that's there to take care of it.
I didn't really get all that from that, but all right.
Yeah, I just thought that was. I thought that was just representative of his character. I mean, he's taking better care of the dog than himself, and yet he hasn't even named the dog, because on the surface, he doesn't want to get too close, but he's sitting there just like loving on the dog, you know.
I think he named the dog Dog. Otherwise, he would constantly be saying the dog.
Yeah.
He named the dog Dog.
Yeah, but
he just is not a person of effort, like, that goes to extremes to think of this elaborate, meaningful name for a dog. Like, he's the basics. Like, it's a dog, so I'll call it Dog.
Yeah, but I think he named it Dog because he didn't want to give it a name. Because once you name it, that's it. Like, they're family. So it's Dog. It's Dog.
I think the amount of care that he's shown for the dog shows that he's not just the dog.
Right, and that's my point. Is the contrast there is that you know, that he's actually it's there, but he's not willing to admit it. All right, so then we go back to Michonne and company, and they've camped overnight in an old building.
That looks like they were, like, to me, it looked like that was their old building. Like, that they knew about that. And that was,
really?
like, on the travel path. I mean, they've talked about it before, how sometimes, okay, I'm going to get my thoughts together here. They talked about in the past how long it takes to get to Hilltop. And so to me, it seems like they have had checkpoints set up along the way from the past, and that they made constant journeys over there because, I mean, they've got the horses in the barn with them tied up, much like a stable type thing. There are lamps there. There's a lot of equipment there that seems like maybe it was a checkpoint in the past.
I don't remember seeing lamps, but I
remember
could
because when they
definitely
left,
see
I
that.
was like, oh, they're just going to leave the lamp on.
Oh, I must have missed that.
I was mad because, like, when they're getting ready to go and leaving, they're packing up. DJ runs in and says, we got to go. There's walkers or whatever. So they all get ready to go. But then there's a lamp, like, in the corner burning. Oh. Just like, all right, just burn down the building. It's fine. Eventually it'll go out.
True that.
And then they'll be out. My point is that they left equipment there.
Yeah.
And they weren't packing it up, so it seems like that's a checkpoint.
Yeah, I absolutely see that. That's a very good observation. I completely agree with you. So then she's on patrol. She catches Luke messing around, and of course she's still not completely sold on this group. And so she tells him to drop it. He says he can't, and turns around and she slices an original Stradivarius into two pieces and wakes everybody else up in the process. And then immediately we go back before the reveal of what I just told you. And we see Henry wake up in his tent, and he sees that Daryl's up shuffling around. He gets out and tries to follow Daryl. And this was another scene that I thought was very much like a horror movie, like the way it played out. And finds a walker in the trap, and he thinks it's Daryl. And then, of course, he sees the walker, and it spooks him. And then Daryl comes up behind. Hey, you following me? And so then they go, and Daryl tells him to leave, and he's a lot like he's Carl 2.0, so he doesn't leave. And he follows him.
For good reason. Like, why are you yelling at me to leave when it would just be easier for me to help you?
Exactly, yeah. Well, because he's Daryl, and he don't need nobody.
Okay, well, it's Daryl, and it's stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. He doesn't want to be responsible for someone else, I think.
Yeah, and I can get that. Like, you don't want to be a part of, like, someone else's death. I get that. But at the same time, it's been this long, which he has been out there alone all this time now. So I guess whatever.
Yeah, he's a loner. So, so they find the dog tied up, and walkers all around. Daryl saves the dog, and in the process, the walkers are kind of getting in around, and one of them loses a foot and gets away from the trap. And Henry steps in to kill the walker and steps in a trap. And then Daryl helps him get out. And I think he feels bad that it was kind of his fault or whatever. But then he immediately warms up to Henry. And then we see that Carol, little puppet master in the background, had her bow drawn. She's ready to strike if anything were to go south. But she's also just kind of like, this is exactly what I wanted to happen. And so then we go back to Hilltop, and Tara reports to Jesus that Rosita's okay. Enid has her on IV, which is another sign of normalcy. It's like, I wouldn't think, unless they like where are they getting IVs from? Like, where they just have IVs? Are they making IVs? Like, did they find like a stock, storage of IVs? Like, and how long do IVs last? I wonder. It's like I have these questions. But I mean, my sister-in-law's a nurse. I guess I could have just asked her.
Yeah, because she knows she's been tracking that IV for a while, and
she might just know in general. Well, I'm sure there's an expiration date on IVs.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm sure they can't just leave them in there for years and use them whenever. I mean, it's liquid. It probably expires at some point. Like the pouch, you know? I don't know.
I'm thinking you're talking about like just the empty plastic.
Oh, no.
Like that's what an IV is. Like,
Well, yeah. I mean, they fill in it. I guess they found the materials and could be filling it. I didn't even think about that.
I mean,
Could be
like
just refilling it.
Yeah.
With salt water or whatever, saline.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And then they obviously live by the ocean, like nearby. So, because of Oceanside.
Yeah, they're just collecting ocean water. Maybe that's what that guy was looking at, like in the jar. Maybe it wasn't moonshine. Maybe he's purifying saline water to put in their IV drips.
Maybe. It could have been anything. So then we go back to, we don't go back to, Tara is still not berating, but just kind of like trying to get Jesus to realize that he needs to step up and be a leader. And he's finally just admits to her that, he doesn't really want to do that. And, you right? Mm-hmm. And so, and she tells him she's going to go out and help find Eugene in the morning, and he's going to stay there and actually do his job. So Tara's kind of, I would say, manning up, like telling Jesus to man up, but she's actually doing all the work. Then we go back to Daryl, and we see him changing his shirt, and we see the scars that Henry mentioned. And it looks like on the top right shoulder, he's got a big X scar, and then he's got a couple different scars, but then he's got an X scar in the same place that Michonne has. And I thought maybe that these were just, because they look very similar, I thought that maybe they happened at the same time, and he just got more of it because he's Daryl, and he, puts his foot in his mouth and gets Glenn killed and stuff like that.
Jeez, harsh.
But I saw on Twitter, or maybe it was a YouTube video or something, but there's back in like season 2 or something, there's another shot of when Daryl and Merle had like their episode, and Daryl was changing his shirt, and you see all the same scars on his back except for the one in the lower left. Like he's still got that big X scar from when he was abused. Those are like from when he was abused when he was a kid.
What? The X looks identical. Like it looks like the same X in the top right and like the bottom left.
The lower left leg of the X is a little bit longer. So I don't know. And there's a couple that are just kind of like, and they, in the old picture, they look kind of fresh, but I don't know. But I think those scars were revealed way back in the early seasons to show that he had been abused as a child. And that him and Merle had been abused and that type of thing. That's why they were the way they were and all that kind of stuff. So, and there's no way I would have known that except that I went looking to try to figure it out, if those were new or not. And, but apparently it's just the same scar that Michonne has that, So now we've got at least two people who have that scar.
That are exactly the same.
Yeah.
That look like a brand.
Yeah. Is it a brand?
I think it definitely is.
And one of the theories is that it's a brand from Hilltop, that somehow they got into a civil war and Hilltop branded them. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. And that's why there's all this beef between them. But that theory doesn't really hold up, and we'll get into it on the other end of it.
I feel like when we get to the speculation portion, we're literally going to be like, oh, what were we supposed to speculate about?
There's more. I guarantee there's more. Yeah, so Henry looks away, and I don't know if it's because he was just like, oh, I shouldn't be looking at Daryl with his shirt off, or it, just kind of like, oh, he's
definitely don't think it was that.
Like a privacy thing, or if it's a like he knows what happened and just kind of like is intrigued by the scar because he asked about it, and
I think it's kind of like when you get caught staring at like a mole on somebody's face or something. Like it's that kind of thing. Like your mom always tells you not to stare. You shouldn't stare. He feels like he's getting caught staring because Daryl turns around. And he's like, crap, I was staring at his scars.
Oh yeah, like had Carol been there, she would have just like whacked him on the head, like stop staring.
Don't stare. Yeah, exactly.
So then, so he either doesn't know about the event, or he doesn't know much about it, and that either means that like it was either just not commonly known throughout the communities what happened, and it was like an isolated incident, or he was just sheltered from it because he was a kid and everybody knows, and he was just a kid, and so nobody told him. And there, we can speculate about like who else might have a scar. Do all the leaders have scars, like all of our original crew or whatever? Does Carol have a scar? Is that how he knows about it? Does Ezekiel have a scar? I don't know. I guess we'll see. So then Daryl and Henry kind of have a moment, and Daryl lets his guard down and gives Henry something to ward off the infection from the scratch on his leg from the trap. And then he sits there and just loves on his dog. And then it tells him that because earlier when they asked him, asked Daryl about the walker hand and foot and stuff, and he, bringing it to him, and he was like, does he always do that? And he's like, well, dog's got his reasons. It's like, why didn't you just say what it was? But now he's letting his guard down. He says, well, the dog tricks the traps, but he's never been caught in one. So apparently he'll like break off a piece of the walker and bring it back, just let him know that it's there. And he also thanks him for his help. And Henry, I don't know if I'm liking this Henry better than old Henry. He's still kind of a punk, And says that Daryl says the traps are for the walkers, not the animals, because slow and painful is no way to die. And I don't know if he's just kind of like going in his head about the possibility of Rick's painful, slowly dying, or.
I feel like he's definitely talking about Merle.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, jog my memory about that. Like, how did Merle die again?
Merle didn't die like that, but like Rick left him up there to die, and that was one of the last conversations Rick and Daryl had about like, hey, I left your brother up there to die. Like, you didn't have to, care about me at all because I left Merle up there handcuffed to a pipe to die. Instead, he sawed his own arm off. Like, I thought he was definitely talking about Merle. Like I wouldn't wish that upon my worst enemy, let alone my brother. Like, because I have such a close relationship with people being trapped like that, I wouldn't want an animal to have to do that. Yeah,
I could see that. Yeah, that's a good point. One of the missable details is Daryl says that there's been a lot more walkers lately, and 10 years into the apocalypse, that's kind of a big deal because at this point, everybody that turned from the original apocalypse moment from the very beginning is long gone, and there's only like new deaths is the only way we're getting new walkers. And to this point, I think we talked about it a week or two ago, there's walkers are manageable. There's not very many of them, except that they keep seeing these. Back in Rick's day, or before the time jump, before the time jump, there were still pretty good sized herds, obviously, and they were naming the herds and everything. But 6 years later, apparently that's not really a thing anymore.
Well, I mean, it is to a certain extent. I mean, that's why Eugene and Rosita are, that's why there's a head of security making sure that people don't go out, because walkers are still a problem. But I just don't think that many people are killing walkers like they were before. Like, people aren't going out, putting themselves at risk just to kill walkers. They're only killing them when they come across them. And so I feel like the number could build back up naturally or whatever, because no one's managing them.
All right. So, yeah, I get that. That does make sense. But also, like, I feel like that could potentially be, like, he said there's a lot more lately. Could that be because the Whisperers are wiping out communities? And that's why we're getting more hordes and more groups of dead people. Maybe. And another thing Daryl mentioned that was just kind of in passing was that the traps and leaving the walkers out there after he kills them keeps the animals away. And so, at this point, the animal population is building back up, and he's got to worry about like mountain lions and stuff like that. That right there. I mean, you could. I think that leans more into the Western, and I would like to see that where they're actually having to deal with animals, and mountain lions and stuff like that, not just walkers, Let's see. So, oh yeah. So Henry also asked Daryl not to tell his mom that he got caught in the trap and everything, and that Daryl.
Except the fact that she doesn't ask him why he's limping.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of like The Ring. It's like they're not going to talk about how it happened. And so he also says that basically kind of like chides Daryl a little bit. And it's like, look, you're my mom's best friend. She's always said that, more than anybody, you're the closest person. And, she worries about you and she shouldn't have to, man. And Daryl, I guess, goes back and, reverts to a child. And it's like, okay, yeah, you're right. But anyway. But I mean, Henry does, and the children in this new Walking Dead iteration are a lot more sage and wise,
Well, it's like this is all they know.
Yeah, they're definitely smarter than normal kids, wiser. So Daryl was like, "Hey, you want me to looking over your shoulder all the time? Is that what you want?" And he said, "Well, it's not really about me, And so plus 10 persuasion skills to Henry. He's convinced Daryl to stay. And then we go back to Luke and reveal that Michonne, destroyed a priceless heirloom in the Stradivarius violin. And he tells a little story about how we survived the Neanderthals, however you say it. And and it gives reference to a 40,000-year-old flute that was found in a cave, and just kind of like, hey, art is how we share things. We became a community, and we basically just outgrew the Neanderthals, and the Neanderthals didn't come together, and they just died out. And it's very, very interesting take on it. And but at the same time, in my head, I'm like, okay, so they're building this argument for the fair, only to, like in the comics, the fair was akin to the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones. Like a lot of main characters die. So like he's building up, or they're building up this argument for the fair, only to have the fair blow up in their face. So, I mean, it's kind of like, it's man, that's a great argument. Man, that's a great argument. Arts are important. But
art gets us killed.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess they're playing both sides of the argument there. So, and it almost seems to convince Michonne, and she's like, no. Like literally her face does that. Literally. And so another missable detail is that Yumiko, I saw this on Twitter, somebody said that Yumiko and Magna are definitely a couple. And I was like, what?
I don't think they're definitely a couple, but I see that way more than her and Bernie being a couple.
Yeah. Yeah, because, I mean, and some of the clues here is like Yumiko is resting her head on Magna's lap, and Magna's playing with her hair. But, I mean, some of these can also just be just them being girls, just being... just being friends, not girlfriend, but like, just girlfriends, playing with each other's hair and being close.
I could, with more evidence, I could see it, but like that one event didn't lead me to think that.
Mm-hmm. Except that there's another one, when everybody is woken up by Michonne, they're sleeping next to each other, and they're kind of like, got their arms like almost kind of cuddling.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't catch that part.
Yeah, and I went back and watched it because I missed that. And like they're sleeping on the same cot, and they're sleeping next to each other. No big deal. They're in a foreign place, and they're banding together, and they're close. Because it could just be close friends and girls cuddling. Because, I mean, girls have sleepovers and cuddle with each other and all that kind of stuff. So it could be that they're just close. Or they're actually, like, they're spooning, So.
I'll venture to say that they're spooning.
Yeah.
I've been to many sleepovers, and
Yeah.
I can't recall a time that I snuggled up with some of my. I have a best friend since before I was born, and I don't think we've ever snuggled up like
Really?
that. We used to sleep in the same bed for.
I've
I
always
almost lived
heard-
with her for like 7 months.
I've always heard girls just like, come over here and cuddle or whatever, you know.
I mean, like you like sit on the couch or something, you end up laying next to each other or something, but never have we like snuggled.
Well, that might just be your personality too. I mean,
It's very possible. I would
But
venture to
Magna
say that it's
doesn't-
not that common though.
I was about to say Magna doesn't strike me as
Neither does
as
Yumiko.
It's just like a handsy person.
Yeah.
Outside of the
would-
knives.
Clever. I don't think that. I think that if that is true, then they are more likely to be a couple.
And that does explain how like the dynamic in leadership between Magna and Yumiko. It's like they're the leaders.
King and queen.
Yeah. And they just kind of they exchange back and
Co-lead.
forth. They co-lead. Yeah. And that also explains why she has such a deep understanding of how Magna feels about Bernie too.
Because they're close.
Yeah, because I mean, we don't really know much about Yumiko yet because she was kind of like out of play episode before last.
And maybe because she was unconscious.
Right. That's what I mean.
Oh. I couldn't tell that that's what you were referring to.
Yeah, she wasn't available. She wasn't there. And and she stepped up a lot in this episode. Almost made me think that she was the leader, except for her and Magnus dynamic. And so then in the morning, they pack up, and Sadiq is trying to convince Michonne to come all the way to Hilltop, but Michonne says that it's best that she doesn't. And she doesn't know what Maggie will do when she sees her. So last time we saw Michonne and Maggie together was they had the little episode with Negan, and there was a little, but I think that ended well, where they kind of were like they had an understanding about what needed to happen with Negan, and then immediately into Rick on the bridge, and Maggie was there for Michonne, holding their back, and you know, so I don't know. Like there's got to be more to it. There's got to be some new beef, or maybe Michonne blames everybody for Rick's death because he was trying to get the bridge together and he couldn't because of them, you know, because they were, you know, pushing back and everything. So I don't know. There's obviously something going on that we don't know because Michonne and Maggie have some serious beef. And if you've seen the teasers for next week, you'll see a little bit more, and we'll talk about that in the speculation episode coming up. So then Sadiq tells her that Maggie took Herschel and left. And Michonne wants to know where she went and how Sadiq even knows this. So apparently they're not even supposed to be speaking to Hilltop, or she just assumes that nobody is. Like, you know, she's closed walls, like they're on lockdown. And like, you know, we even said earlier, Aaron mentioned that Michonne would call his talking to Jesus a security breach.
Boy, gotta pray. I'm just kidding. Talking to Jesus.
Oh,
I was just kidding.
gotcha. So then walkers show up before Sadiq can answer Michonne's question about, you know, where she went and how he knew and all this kind of stuff. And DJ rushes in. And he tells him that there's walkers, and the big purple bag that he has are the weapons that they gathered up from the group's rig, and they want Michonne to give them their weapons, but she doesn't answer. She just goes to town, and from what I gather, it's assumed that it's a no, that they're not getting their weapons, and then but then when it gets thick and Michonne is busy, DJ just kind of like, he just decides, he puts the bag down, opens it up, and it's like starts passing out weapons. And with no so I mean, DJ is obviously trusted to the point where he's allowed to carry everybody else's weapons and pass them out, and there's no like, what do you think you're doing, man, or anything like that afterwards.
Yeah, so to me, like, that shows that Michonne isn't ruling things with, like, such a heavy hand like you were talking about earlier, like the Iron Fist, because otherwise she would have been like, what do you think you're doing? And would have slapped him around a little bit. I feel like we would have seen that.
Slapped her. Yeah, I think she expresses disapproval, but she doesn't go to the point of punishing or,
Yeah, and so to me, like, that's not an iron fist.
Yeah. That there is a definite big difference there. So then he passes out the weapons, and we see that Yumiko has a bow and arrow. Magna has her knives. In the comics, she actually had guns, and one of the people that helped design her thing gave her like this big leg strap for her knife that kind of resembled her gun holster that she had in the comics. So
Yumiko has a bow and arrow in the comics.
Yeah, Yumiko has bow and arrow. Magna has the knives. Connie and Kelly both have slingshots, and Luke has this like short-handled pickaxe-looking thing that's kind of like sharp on both ends.
I think in The Talking Dead he kept calling it an ice pick.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what he was talking about, and I just couldn't get with it. I was like, he never has an ice pick in his hand, but he's talking about the pickaxe.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He just doesn't know what a pickaxe is.
Yeah. So then Michonne goes up to save the horses, and Yumiko like steps in full charge of everybody else, tells DJ and everybody where to go and what to do. And so that made me question before I kind of put two and two together and looked into the Yumiko Magna shipping. That made me wonder if Yumiko was really the group leader, because she stepped up as soon as Michonne was there. She was just like, "Hey, circle back around. You go here. DJ do this." And really just laid it down what everybody's supposed to do. So they disperse most of the walkers as a team, and Michonne tells him, was like, "Hey, this is the herd that destroyed your rig." And I was like, "Well, how you know?" And she points out Bernie, and we see the shirt that they've been alluding to this entire episode probably like 5 to 10 times, not that many times, but a bunch of times. And it's just as horrible as they described, to be honest. And so yeah, I mean, it's pretty gross, like orange sleeves and collar, and with all these purple and green paisleys, and it was bad. But anyways, so then the group just kind of like sinks, and Magna almost has like a meltdown, and it affects Kelly heavily, and everybody's extremely bothered. And Michonne really seems to be moved by this, and just kind of like, politely, softly puts Bernie out of his misery and lays him down, very respectfully. And then in the midst of all this, Sadiq is like, "Hey, Michonne, we got to go." And she hollers to them, "We got to go." And they got to pull it together and get back on the wagon. And then we go back to morning at Daryl's camp. He's packing up his bike to go, and Carol just can't stop grinning. He's like, "Hey, did you sleep well?" "Yeah, I slept great. Okay. She's just like giggling to herself as she pours some coffee, knowing that her plan worked out the way she wanted. And one question I had is, like, at the end of the episode, Daryl's riding this bike, and he's been out here for so long. Like, what is he using as fuel? Like, he's still using like corn.
Well, I took that as like Carol continually brings it to him.
Okay.
Like, she's bringing him supplies.
Yeah, that's true. And if it's like at a
sparingly.
Yeah, if it was too sparingly, like, it would go bad in the tank, because I mean, you got to like put stuff in there for if it's just going to be sitting there. So, I mean, he's obviously doing maintenance on his bike and everything over these years. So I was just like curious about that. But yeah, I guess it makes sense that Daryl's.
I mean, we did see it like covered, propped up on a tree, and so maybe it didn't have gas up until then, and so she brought him gas to drive over to Hilltop with her.
Yeah, and he's pretty resourceful. I'm sure he could fix it. So then we go back to Michonne and company, and they're back on the road, and she sympathizes with Yumiko about losing loved ones, and she says she gets it, and says that they'll be safe at the Hilltop, but she's going to head back home. She's done. And Sadiq apologizes for not telling Michonne about Maggie sooner, and says that she's someplace far away, finally gets to answer her question. Says that Maggie's someplace far away in another community helping Georgie, and that hey, not to worry. You don't have to worry about Maggie. You can come all the way with us. And she says, I kept my promise to Judith. No, this is as far as I go. I need to get back. And Sadiq just kind of pushing her. He was like, look, what about your promise to Carl? And just really lays it out there. And she, says, hey, it's not that simple. And then we get some Hilltop writers that approach, and Michonne is surprised. She even says out loud, it's like, those spears. Like, apparently she didn't know about the blacksmith and what they got going on over there. Like, she is completely removed from anything that Hilltop is doing.
Well, no, like she says, like, she observed, I took it as her observing the spears and saying, oh, you're from Hilltop. Like,
oh, I don't. When I watched it the second time, it was like those spears. Like, she was just like impressed. It was just like, whoa.
I mean, I agree, but I think it was more like she used it as identification.
Well, I would think that those type of weapons and stuff would be more Kingdom type, and with the armor and everything. But I mean, they've got a different type of armor. Like, Kingdom was just kind of like found like hockey pads and all that kind of thing. Well,
beforehand.
I guess they had stuff, but I mean. The Kingdom, or the Hilltop, actually has, like, they're building actual armor now with this blacksmith and everything.
Yeah, but I mean, look at Carol's armor. She's from the Kingdom, and she's got a Joan of Arc type crosshatch armor going on.
True.
And what's her face at Hilltop is still wearing her hockey gear.
That's true. Diane, I looked up her name. Her name's Diane.
Is that what I guessed? I feel like I guessed that.
Yeah, probably. You're usually right about that stuff.
That's true. Thanks.
So yeah, they ride up and say that they're delivering a message to Alexandria, and that they have Rosita. Michonne is, what's going on? Tells them, hey, just go ahead and tell them we're safe. That Michonne and crew are going to the Hilltop. And so then one missable detail, we get a cameo from actor C. Thomas Howell, who played Ponyboy Curtis in The Outsiders when he was a kid. And he's been on a lot of movies and TV shows since then. But, he's kind of a celebrity.
He's kind of a celebrity as he plays in The Walking Dead and many other movies, but we only consider him kind of a celebrity.
He's celebrity enough to draw attention to it and say, hey, that's so-and-so.
For him to have a cameo, I would venture to say he's a celebrity.
Yeah. And what's funny is, like, the only reason he was in it is because they needed some writers, and they hadn't cast anybody.
Writers, not writers. Just FYI.
Riders, excuse me. She doesn't like the way I pronounce my words.
No, I'm just saying, like, they didn't need a writer. They needed a rider. Oh. It just needs to be.
So anyway, they hadn't cast anybody to ride the horses. And so Michael Cudlitz was like, hey, I know a guy, would you be interested in C. Thomas Howell? I'll give him a call and see if he's interested. And they're like, hey, yeah, call him up. And so his only stipulation was that he doesn't die. He's like, because if I die, I can come back.
If I don't die.
Yeah, if I don't die, I can come back. My bad. Well, I mean, if you die, you come back either way. So.
But that's not what he said.
That's not what he meant. So then we go back to, Connie, before they move off, Connie thinks she sees something in the woods, but then she says it's nothing. But then we get a point of view to this, like, it's actually somebody out there watching them. And that's another horror-esque type thing for the show. So we could speculate about who it is. It could be Lydia,
Not me, but
not this Lydia. It's a whole different Lydia. I think it's probably Lydia. But
I don't know who that is, so I'm not going to speculate just yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I also think that, like, we can't get too tied up in specifically thinking that it was a direct us looking through someone else's eyes or anything, because when we see Rosita in the very beginning, we get the same feeling like she's being watched, but there are no walkers exactly around her watching her creepily.
Oh yeah.
And so I feel like we're just meant to connect and tie the two things together from that viewpoint, but we can't assume, we can't just say like, oh yeah, somebody was watching her. Like, we don't know. But I mean, I think it is.
And I forgot to mention like some of the like you hear the whispers like in the background or whatever, and they're almost like having a discussion. Like some of them said she's dead. Some of them said, don't let her get that far or something like that.
Keep looking.
Yeah. But yeah. So
if you're really into the show and you like those little details, I would definitely recommend to turn on the captions, because that's how we find out stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Except for like the teasers, they don't really have captions on those, so I just kind of have to put my headphones on and turn it up. So then we see Carol, Daryl, and Henry arriving at the hilltop, but all Henry can think about is Enid. And we get kind of like an Anakin Padme Star Wars prequel type thing going on, where he was a little kid and she was older, and all he can think about is her. So yeah, that would be kind of odd. Because I kind of put Enid and what's his face together? Xavier. Alden, yeah. Like they seem the same age. That one makes more sense than Henry.
They did not seem the same age to me.
Really?
Really.
Well, maybe just the way she kind of like took charge or whatever. Because yeah, if you think about it,
she was Carl's age.
Yeah, that's true. But after Carl left, it was almost like she seemed a lot older. Because she was becoming a doctor and all this stuff. I don't know. Maybe Carl just seemed a lot younger than he was. I don't know. That was my hot take on it.
I think it's different because she doesn't have parents. Like.
True. Yeah.
She's been alone.
More mature.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. That's true. So they're greeted by Jesus and Tara, and Carol tells Jesus that Henry wants to train as a blacksmith, and Jesus said they can help him out with that. And then Aaron tells Daryl about Rosita, and that they could use his help to find Eugene. They could use a good tracker. And Daryl just kind of like literally like looks over at Carol and was like, "Is that okay?" Gets permission from Mama Carol. He's supposed to be there.
He's supposed to be watching Henry.
Oh, gotcha.
And he's like, well, can I ditch Henry and go?
Yeah, because they just got there and he's going to turn around and leave again. That makes sense. Yeah, and Henry...
It'd be like, hey, I'm going to babysit your kid, but I got to go to this thing.
Yeah, that's true. And Henry's like, well, I'm going too. She's like, no, I don't think so.
Don't be stupid.
So then Jesus tells Tara that he's going... And Tara, they kind of have it out a little bit, and he's like, well, next time when you get back, you better take care of the next kazoo. And he's I promise, when I get back, if he gets back,
what?
He promises to do better when he returns and to run things, and they leave the hilltop with Dog and everybody. Yeah, because I mean, when somebody always says I'll be back, they never come back.
I don't think Jesus is gonna die.
We'll see. Tune in to the speculation coming up. We're gonna end this one. Thanks for watching, and if you're interested in the speculation, it's gonna probably be a lot more interesting because we're not just like going over the details. But anyways, thanks for tuning in. And if you have tuned in this entire time, please leave a comment. Let us know what you think. We want to make the show better. We want to do better and make it a lot more fun for you guys and fun for us. So we appreciate you tuning in, whether it's on Facebook, YouTube, or if you're listening by podcast. And don't forget to check out the website. That's www.broken.picturesno.com. And you can check us out you can find us on social media, Broken Pictures Social on Facebook, on Instagram and Twitter. It's going to be broken_social. And if you're feeling generous on Patreon, you can look up Broken Pictures. And more importantly, if you would like, share, and subscribe or comment, rate, and review, just let us know what you think. Let some friends know if they're into The Walking Dead that we're here and we're doing a show. So this is Dylan.
And I'm Lydia.
And thanks for tuning in to The Broken Dead. We'll see you next time. Peace.